Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Dungeon Master Solutions. This is GMKC. I am here with the first Dungeon Master Solutions podcast, and I have a guest here today, and my friend, he is my friend, DM Ian.
Hey!
Welcome to the show, Ian.
Hey, thanks. Thanks for having me.
So, the topic of today, our first podcast, we're going to be talking about Eberron. And I know you know a lot about it because you are DMing a campaign for me right now in Eberron. So.
I know very little about it, but from what I've learned on the way so far, it's amazing. Mm-hmm. It's awesome.
Oh yeah, a lot of cool stuff. But before we get into the details, I was wondering if you could tell me, in your own words, what is Eberron? What is it?
Oh man. Okay. Let's see here. Eberron. Okay, so think a nation full of steampunk devices, artificers, lots of low-scale magicians, magic everywhere, high pulp action fantasy, someone jumping from like an airship, catching a lightning rail, and just like zooming in through a window, like all of that at once. It's an amazing place.
Your description reminds me of Anakin and Obi-Wan on Coruscant in the second Attack of the Clones, right?
It's so good. Yeah. Just that high pulp, just ultimate action, edge of your seat stuff is all about Eberron. And I've tried to use that in, we've only had 3 sessions so far, but I've tried to incorporate that into as much of the sessions as possible.
Oh yeah, absolutely, man. And I could tell I'm having a ball with it. Still, I don't even fully comprehend all of the different things we're jumping off of and flying on, and of course, the flying bugbears. Right? Were they bugbears or kobolds? What were they?
Oh, yes, they were gnolls, I think.
Oh, that's it. Okay.
Yeah, but they have these green goblin flying discs, and they're just coming in after your sky coach, and
yes,
it's wild.
Okay, yeah, great stuff. Mm-hmm. Something that interests me, and I'll mention it to you briefly about this, is the concept of anachronism, and it blows my mind, and I think it's integral to what Eberron is. And what anachronism is the cross between disparate time periods. So it's the example that one of my teachers gave back in school was in the Shakespeare play Julius Caesar, a clock tower ominously rings in the distance, foreboding, the death of Julius Caesar. But in ancient Rome, they totally didn't have clock towers. But people in Victorian Shakespeare times, they were like, yeah, okay, totally. So that concept, the blending of different time periods is really interesting to me. And I think, as I said, I think it's the core of what Eberron is.
They say that it's like anything that you can imagine in D&D, there's a place in Eberron for it. And I really like pulling in stuff from pretty much anywhere. Like I could probably even do like photographs or something like that, and you guys would just run with it. You'd be like, oh yeah, someone figured out how to do that, I'm sure.
Every little, technological advancement that you feel like including, you get to include. Yeah.
Yeah, and you don't have to explain it. You can just say, you can hand wave and be like, oh yeah, it's Eberron. That stuff's in there.
Absolutely, dude. Very good. Well, all right. So let me go ahead. We're going to move on to our next question. Tell me, how is your Eberron campaign going from DM to DM? How's it coming?
I'm really enjoying it. I think after we ended the first session, there was a moment where we were all kind of like jazzed up and just like chatting to each other like, wow, that was awesome. Everyone like dug each other's characters. Everyone was really feeling it. So I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying the player characters. We've got Brambo, the Shifter, which more and more in my head, I see him as like this Wolverine-esque, kind of character.
Every time you revisit, he gets hairier and hairier.
Yes. I don't know if you were going for that, but I really, in my headcanon, I kind of see that. And then we've got Tyrion, the half-elf with a mysterious past, and what you guys found out has a dragon mark, which is a pretty big deal in Eberron.
Yeah.
And then we had Watcher, the Warforged cleric, but we had a player death in session 2 on a cliffhanger. Yeah. And then Terry, the changeling. Just the concept of a changeling is like the possibilities of getting in and out of places are so cool that you guys are coming up with. Just a short example, when you guys were interrogating the kobold in the first session, Terry's like, "Oh, I'll be right back," and then her and Watcher go out. She shapeshifts into a kobold. You guys come in and like, "Oh, we got another kobold here," and then let's leave these guys in here alone. And then the guy just spilled the whole beans to the other kobold, just assuming that it was just another kobold. So I'm having a blast.
Mm-hmm. And from the DM perspective of challenging the players, you think on one hand it's like, oh, I have made one of my PCs a god. But at the same time, you can tweak it, you can challenge it, because what you say is what you do in D&D. And if they forget to say, "Oh, I changed back," if you have a sharp memory, you can really make things fun. If they were looking like bad guys walking in the good guy place, bows could get drawn.
Yes, that is true. In fact, there's a lot of adventures I've been researching and everything like that. Well, here, I'll show you. Like, I've been like just
nice.
getting all this Eberron stuff. I'm really like falling in love with it. So I'm excited to see what else for you guys to discover.
Oh, absolutely. Very cool. Well, talking about the Warforged, that brings up my next question, and that is, do you like Warforged?
I do. I really do. I've been listening to I've been researching a lot, but Keith Baker is the author of the setting, and he goes into Warforged a lot. But basically their backstory is, remember there was like this 100 long year war, right? And one of the houses, they found this thing called a creation forge, and they used it with their steampunk technology to create the Warforged as soldiers to fight in the war. But they're not, he specifically says they're not like robots, but he gives permission, like you can play it like that. Like we had our Watcher kind of like Data, like kind of learning about it. And he's like, if you want to play it like that, that's totally cool. But anyway, they're just this new race at the end of the war. The war's only ended 4 years ago. They're designed to kill and to fight in this war. And now the war is ended and they're like, okay, you are free now. And all the Warforged are just looking at each other like, what is free? What do we do? What do we do now? What are we?
Right.
It's really cool.
In some cases, maybe swords are built into their arms, and then just like, killing is my function, that kind of,
right, yeah. I guess he's a chef now, or cutlery or something like that. But yeah, it's
perhaps,
just they're really struggling to find their own identity, not only as like a race itself, but also as an individual now and everything like that. So they're really cool themes that you can play with as a PC and as NPCs too.
Absolutely, man. That's an interesting thing you said about not treating them like robots. I maybe perhaps that's a mistake I've always done, and perhaps that is indeed why I personally don't 100% love them. But I definitely, if my players are really adamant about it, I say, okay, fine.
Okay.
It goes back to the old something I care a lot about is being able to challenge my players. Mm-hmm. And of course, not every campaign is a keep track of your water. How many rations do you have? But it does matter if it's like you want to put a scenario in your players. If your entire party is Warforged, they're just going to walk across the desert and not really worry about.
Because they won't get exhausted. They don't need to eat. They don't need to drink. I don't even think they need to sleep, really, right?
If anything, it might be like the elf.
The trance,
perhaps something like that. Yeah. But.
Yeah, like recharge. I guess as a DM, you could be like, let's just say for our campaign, like you do have to recharge or something like that.
Ooh, that's a fascinating concept. I would be 100% on board with that. I think that really adds a lot of interesting elements.
And they don't have to eat to survive, but they do feel pain and they can taste things. So
I didn't know those things. That's interesting.
Yeah,
they can feel pain.
Yeah, they can feel pain. Yeah, which is horrifying because, like you said, a lot of them are veterans and they're coming home from the war, or not home, but they're coming out of the war with missing limbs. And we had a Warforged, Cole, who lost a limb in the first episode and everything like that. But yeah, I'm telling you, it's a lot of stuff that you can do in here.
Sweet, man. Well, cool. I'll move on to my next question, and that is, so this is a technological kind of pseudo-future. What is your stance on guns in Eberron?
Like, very rare to, like, not existing, or if there is one, it's like House Cannith or has just figured out how to make one. Oh, yeah. Remember the Murder on the Orient or not Orient Express, but
Yes.
Murder on the Eberron Express.
That's
Remember,
it. Yes.
Yeah, he was he had just figured out how to make a pistol, essentially like a wand built in that anyone can use. You don't have to be attuned to it, and he was trying to get it to the headquarters to mass produce it. So stuff like that in Eberron can really throw off the balance of, everything's really fragile right now. We just came out of a 100-long-year war. If someone all of a sudden can mass produce pistols and guns and muskets, like, they're going to have such a huge advantage, and they're going to think, oh, we can take over the whole country now. And they're going to start the war like all over again. And then everyone just falls into it.
Mm-hmm. I've had players before who really wanted to have a gun as part of their kit. And I've usually kind of been against it, but I recently, as you know, as you are a player in, we've started a Spelljammer campaign. And that is also the same kind of like pseudo techno futuristic vibe, but more so even in space. And I had the gift player Oswald, as you know, and he built a character around using the muskets and the muskets and the pistols and things like that. And
how common are they in Spelljammer? Are they not at all?
Well, the thing is that the GIF, the hippopotamus people, their identities are wound up in guns and explosives and that kind of thing. So, yeah, I guess pretty common. And so as a DM, you really have to think about finding a way to make sure that they don't just steamroll your entire campaign with automatic rifles and things like that.
Did you have to go into like the DMG to find the stats for that pistol?
I did, yes. The cool. Stats, what's cool is that like, even if you want to get even more futuristic, they have rules for all kinds of guns and explosives in the DMG on page 268.
Yeah. I feel like there's some alien weaponry in there too, right?
Yes, like laser guns and stuff.
Yeah. But it kind of makes it, they're not really special anymore, right? If you can just kind of find them everywhere, which is why I like to keep stuff like that like super rare or like part of a plot hook or something like that.
Right. Mm-hmm. Something that interests me, and it kind of, you were talking about how the Warforged were built for this great war. And looking to, in real life, we can look to what we called the Great War, which was World War I. And that, going back to what I was talking about, anachronisms, World War I was a big anachronism because they had cavalry charges against like tank units and all sorts of stuff like that. So perhaps, ideas for the future, it might be fun to do a Great War in like an Eberron-esque setting. Or perhaps... Yeah.
Oh, I was about to say, yeah, there are... that would be awesome. And there also is like an adventure where you're actually in the Great War. Like you and the character PCs are like in the same unit and you're like on one of the fronts and everything like that. And dude, the Great War, like I still don't, I only like 5% of it, but it's just so, it's so wild. But the one front, they're like fighting, the two nations are fighting. And all of a sudden, everything, goes quiet. It goes into like a Cold War kind of situation. And then all of a sudden, they're like, oh, the enemy's moving. What's going on? Get ready. And they're all like, suiting up and getting ready. All of a sudden, zombies just start pouring like into the trenches. And the one nation like has resorted to using like necromancy to raise an army of the dead to attack their neighbors. And everyone's like, what? And so,
wow.
Yeah.
Is that an adventure that you found on DM's Guild?
Yes. Well, this adventure that I'm referencing is called What's Past is Prologue. So they kind of used it as a way to set up, to give you some background on the Great War before you jump into Eberron. But this is the season of adventures for releasing, when they released Eberron Rising from the Last War. They kind of made like 12 adventures, Adventure League adventures to kind of like get the players into the setting.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, great stuff, Ian. Well, hey, I think that's all the time we have for today. So I super appreciate you stopping by. I hope to talk to you more soon about other D&D topics.
Yeah, man. See you next time.
All right. See ya.